All right, it is super windy right now. It is March 24th, and this is my new machine that I bought. Picked it up off Facebook Marketplace, relatively inexpensive. Supposedly was operating and running and died on him. He believed it was an electrical issue. Started doing cap, rotor, plugs, wires, and when he pulled out the plug, it ended up breaking inside the head, and he said hell with it, and it just sat for quite a few years. So it's a gas engine, Wisconsin gas engine VG4D V4. So should be, as long as it runs, it should be easy to get back up and running. Just when he broke that spark plug off in the head, I just got to extract that, potentially helicoil it or pull the head off, replace head gaskets, who knows. So we'll dive into it and see what we come up with. All right, here's a quick update. So a lot of heat cycles on trying to heat this up, let it cool down, WD it, heat it up, cool it down, so on, probably half a dozen or more times, and that broken off spark plug is not coming out. The extractor I was using is getting a good bite on it. It is just seized in there. So I ordered a 18 by 1.5 thread pitch helicoil, and I'm debating whether to do it right on the engine or just take the head off. I did order head gaskets. It's Sunday now. It won't be here till tomorrow, but I think what I'm going to do in the meantime while I'm waiting, I did turn it over. I charged up the battery and jumped the solenoid, and the engine is free. I just used a battery cable, jumped these two, charged the battery that's there, and it did turn over with the spark plugs out. So I'm going to take the spark plugs out and run a compression test on all of them, and stay tuned for that. All right, here's the update. At that time it was Sunday, and I ordered a helicoil set, head gaskets, and they would have been here Monday. Monday came and gone. It's cold in central Illinois, middle of March. I think the highs got in about mid-40s, so it was a little chilly to be working out here. I did find a day or two with nice weather, and did get started on a few things. So I jacked it up, took this tire off that was flat, fixed this tie rod end that wasn't tight. They don't have a castle nut on it, but the tie rod was really loose. Just doing some odds and ends while we waited for good weather. And today, it's Friday, the 22nd, I believe, and so I was able to come out here after lunch and made a little progress. So I was able to drill and tap, put the helicoil in, so we're good with the spark plug. I do need to, so what I ended up doing, so after I drilled and tapped it, when I tapped it, just to try to eliminate any shavings, I brought the piston up to top dead center and both valves closed, and then put a bunch of grease on the drill, and then the drill bit, and then grease on the tap to try to prevent anything from falling in. And I did buy a little bore scope, so I'm going to take that spark plug out before I turn her over, just to make sure. I mean, this was 30 bucks on Amazon, so I'm going to take that spark plug back out. I did buy another tap for, I think it was 2 taps for 11 bucks off Amazon for the same size to tap all the other ones, and then I anti-seized all the spark plugs. So we're good to go here. Like I said, just going to pull the spark plug out and then run that bore scope in there, make sure that there's no big chunks sitting in there, and then that battery, I think, is toast. It's still on the charger. I took it off. It won't hold a charge, but we're going to put it on there for a significant amount of time, just see what happens, and then roll it over. And the next step, I would say, tinker with this tire, but find out whether we have spark. If we don't, fix that. If we do, move on to the fuel. So it does turn over, so just waiting for that battery so I can spin it over faster. I did do a compression check, but that battery was weak, and I think it was with 2 revolutions, it was about 60 psi. So I want a good solid 5 quick revolutions, and I'm willing to bet it'll jump up. You may not be able to see it, but it's actually hailing, kind of sleeting right now. That's how cold it still is. So I'm going to wrap up and update after I make a little bit more progress. All right, y'all, here's a quick update. So I did do a bore scope through that, as mentioned previously, and I did find the end of the electrode of the spark plug in there. And it was actually the very bottom, almost like the bottom thread and the electrode of the spark plug after I drilled it. So when I drilled it, it must have just fell straight on down. So glad I did it, but I had no way to reach down in there because as that hole goes down, the piston sits down here. So I had to go down and do a sharp 90, and it was sitting right down here at the top, at the very bottom of the piston, because remember I brought that piston to the top dead center and it was sitting down here, so I had no way to go directly down the head and go 90 degrees to pick it out. So I ended up finding a bunch of small magnets, and here's the end of the electrode. So you can see where I was drilling, and then that's the end of the metal part of the spark plug. But I ended up going to Menards and finding these magnets, just wrapped the wire, stuck it down in there, fished it down, picked it up, and it came right out. So glad I did it. I did fish it down there a few times to see if I can pull any other debris out. Nothing really else came out, and I did blow air into it to get any other debris out that may be stuck. So just a quick update on that. All right, you can see that I got the tire mounted. When I bought the machine, it came with 3 separate used tires, and this was the better of the 3, with whoever dismounted and mounted had some rip beads, and this one didn't have as many rips, but remounted it, did not install the tube because the tube had a leak in it at the valve stem, so this was a tubeless, so I didn't put the tube back in, and cleaned up the rim and the bead on the tire, and she's holding. So I sprayed with soap and water and put a new valve stem in it, metal valve stem. So she's holding now. So check mark on the to-do list for that. That's complete, but I did go ahead, and because it was simple enough, I did go ahead and, while I was messing around with the fuel, we'll go over here, I did take the fuel filter off, clean that up, and put a bunch of carb cleaner through it, blew it out, just kind of cleaned it up. New rubber lines to the hard line. And while I had that off, I went ahead and cleaned the bowl off. So I took the bowl out, and there's a lot of rust particles sitting in the bottom of the bowl. So I took the bowl off, cleaned that, took the hard line off, blew air through that to the bottom of that fuel filter. So the fuel line's cleaned out. So I think fuel-wise, we should be good to go. I just need to now bite the bullet and either buy a battery. That's good, because this battery's just no good. I had it charged for, probably good 24 hours, and she just doesn't turn over quick. So I think the battery's just toast, or just take one out of my truck before I bite the bullet and buy a battery and see how quick she spins over. But other than that, I think that's where we're at. I am still tinkering with the key. There's no power to the key, so again, I'm still jumping here, getting it to turn over. This is the the power to the ignition switch. So once I figure the ignition switch out, I'll probably just rob a battery out of my truck, and then we'll see if this thing fires here relatively soon. So stay tuned to that. All right, here's a quick update. April 1st, last day of the kids' spring break and my vacation. But I went ahead and took the battery out of the truck, put it in here. She spun over real quick, so I went ahead and bought a battery specific for the machine. And then I ended up tinkering with the key, made sure all the wires were appropriate. The power was going to the coil in the on and run position. I did find that the ignition, the neutral safety switch, tried to spit that out, wasn't working. So I just bypassed that and put the 2 wires together to bypass it. So did start cranking it, had no spark. So then I started further diagnosing it, found that the points weren't closing when the distributor was going around and making contact and completing the circuit and charging the coil. So I went ahead and adjusted the points, and I think I have them adjusted right now at 13 thousandths. So got it cranked, got the spark showing, and it still didn't fire because of the fuel. So found out that there was still a rubber line leaking. So was the bowl. So I fixed all that, cranked it, and then as I watched the fuel filter, fuel did start going through the fuel filter rather quickly from the fuel pump. So I said, that's pretty good news. So we went ahead and fired her up, and we're going to do it right now. So as you can see, a lot of progress made, and pretty happy with the turnout so far. Next up, there's no hydraulic fluid. I can't get the tires to turn, so I'm going to top off the hydraulic fluid, change some filters, some oil, and then see if we can't get the wheels turning and drive this thing off the trailer on its own power. Stay tuned to that.